Yeah, we put in work and here's the proof. What you want?
I'm making moves, punching in.
I'm on it too.
I'm in the gym.
I'm in the stew.
It's hunting season.
Where's the food?
We push each other daily, level up.
Cause that's what brothers do.
Clock in.
Got a different vibe for y'all today, man. It's gonna be a good one though. Episode 48. 48, man. It's been a crazy journey, man, but a great one, you feel me? So just gonna let Ease beat rock, man, let it ride for a little bit. Shout out to Grussel. Yes, sir. Got Nick in the building. We missing neighborhood Nip, man. I think he outgrew us, you know. But shout out to Nip. Of course, we got Andrew and Katie in the building. You know what I'm saying? And we're missing. Yeah. Give them a round of applause, man. You know, give them a round of applause. Unfortunately, we're not missing. We're not. We don't have Austin with us today. We're missing Austin. His flight didn't get here in time, man. So prayers for him. You know, he's in Florida right now. Had a good little vacation with Jess. So praying that he gets here safely, man. But yeah, man, we here, man. We got a special guest. Known this individual for a few years now, and a lot of the listeners probably already know this dude, man. He's big time. You know, he's gonna be humble. No. But now we got my guy Correy Facciane here in the building. All right, shout out to Correy, man, and everything he's doing. So let's get a little round of applause for him.
I'm happy to be here, man. I'm happy to be here.
Appreciate that, man. Look, first of all, if your last name is Facciane, you gotta be smooth. You feel what I'm saying? You gotta say with a French accent. You feel me?
Yeah,
so,
man.
So you got to see, you know, he got a little young Denzel vibe going, man. Corey's a smooth dude, man.
I appreciate you, brother.
Smooth dude, man. But yeah, man. Want to real quickly just get some formalities out the way. We're in a different location, okay? So if you're looking out at the episode on YouTube or when we post the stuff on social media, we had to call an audible. You know, we had to pull a Peyton Manning Omaha real quick. Shout out to my dad, man. He's letting us record at the church building, new church building. So Christ Fellowship Church. We're not having in-person services right now, but check out the virtual. If you type in Christ Fellowship Church in Herndon, check them out. Had to plug that. But yeah, man, we got a different environment. Usually we're at Overtime Athletics. But if it looks like we're at the Thanksgiving little kids table, you feel what I'm saying? We did the best we could. Okay, leave us alone, all right? Give us some grace, but it's gonna be good, man. It's part of business. You know how it is, man.
I know how it is.
You do events for a living, so you're used to calling audibles. But yeah. Before we get into this rapping with Corey, usual plugs, man. Shout out to Andrew and his business, Tier Womack, all the videography that he's doing, photography. Shout out to KCQ Marketing. We got, Katie in the building, everything she's doing for us, and a bunch of other small businesses. Shout out to Grussel, man, and, what he does with us for the sound, but also one of the best producers in the game. Shout out to Neek, a.k.a. Mr. Fooley. Again, on the videographer side, doing a ton of stuff, man, and like we talked about earlier, working on The Wizard of Oz. That's big time. Shout out to OTA. Man. Yeah, man.
That's huge.
Shout out to OTA. And then the Goods Basketball. Y'all know my brothers and I run that. Lastly, check out our Clock and Lifestyle video. We actually have some new submissions for people who are interested, man, in doing a day in the life video of their clocking. You know what I'm saying? And we want to do one quarterly at least. Maybe a few more. It just depends on, Nico's availability. But if you're interested, DM us, email us at clockinpod@gmail.com, and then Patreon. So Patreon, we launched it so we can add more value, for people that are, loyal supporters. some people were already kind of donating money, so we figured, you know what, why don't we give them more content and have a more structured way to do that? So check it out, man. It's $5.10 a month. You get a ton of benefits that regular listeners don't get. But that's it, man. Wanted to do our usual plugs, but just to kick it off, man, wanted to talk about how we met. It's kind of crazy, man. We're both from Northern Virginia. Basketball, social life, sports, whatever you're doing, it makes it such a small world.
Always.
It makes it such a small world. So, I actually met Correy, man, because our mutual friend Miles Tate. Shout out to Miles, man. He's coaching at PVI and has his own training going on at the Brambleton Sport now.
He's doing his thing.
Doing big things, man. Got married last year, I think, or a couple years ago. Yeah. But Miles would hoop with us, man, in the summer. We would have our Herndon runs. And he hit us and was like, hey, man, what are y'all doing this Saturday? Mm-hmm. And, hoopers, man, you're always looking for bump.
Right, always.
So he was like, there's this tournament or kind of like a clinic that one of my boys is running for charity. Mm-hmm. And he was like, can you and Austin come? We're like, yeah, of course. So we pull up there. It was at the campus in Sterling. Yeah. And, I don't think we met right away. Actually, I think I met you towards the end, but all the people affiliated with your organization, man, just had good vibes. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It. Just good vibes, man. And then, the event was to raise money. I don't remember exactly for who, but it was high school kids. I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah. So, no, you go, bro. So I remember too, because it was actually Miles who, Miles, me and him, brothers. Yeah. You know what I mean? Growing up, so, at a very, very young age. So I remember he reached out. He was like, man, my dream is to host my own clinic. I want to hold a camp, and I want to utilize it to give back to the community. But we didn't even know what that meant. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just rapping with your boy. Right. So we were like, I just remember we kind of put it on pause. This is like probably high school when we first mentioned it. Something that. He's like, yo, I want to give back to the community somehow. Like, you know what I mean? And then, so we put it on pause. We had no idea what we were going to do, all that stuff. And I remember he reached out. He was like, yo, look, this was probably right after George Mason. Okay. Probably right after George Mason. He was like, because then he got a little clout on, you know what I'm saying? He had been playing stuff. So we were like, let's see if we can make some stuff happen. But I hadn't had, an outlet or a charitable organization or any of that type of stuff. So kind of still paused it again. And then I remember I reached back out to him after I started the organization. I was like, bro, we can plug 2 and 2 together. Like, let's make this really happen. Right. And so that once the tournament and stuff, once the camp and stuff really started to be a thing, I remember he said, man, what would be dope is if the last day we brought some of the people together, like our age, to come back and run against the kids that signed up for the camp. And I was like, like you said, people are always looking for bump and stuff. So we're like, let's see what we can do. My organization was in charge of planning the camp, but he was really in charge of like the finer details. So that's when he started reaching out to get, people involved. And I remember y'all walked in the gym and I said, oh, it's real. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we really gonna get some bump going today. Yeah. So I remember that. And like you said, we never got a chance to really meet during the actual, camp and stuff and while y'all were getting runs in and everything. Right. But I know afterwards, you came up and, we got to finally meet and all that stuff. But I had already known Austin for a while from hooping with him. So it was good. And then the money was really benefiting my organization because we were on the ground and we wanted to make sure that, number one, we, could raise enough funds to be able to make an impact on the community. Yep. And number two, really get our names out there while trying to grow Miles' training business and all that stuff too. So it was good, man. It was good. I was glad we got to meet. Yeah. I remember the event was definitely, we've done a lot of events now, but that's one that always stands out. Yeah, bro. You know what I'm saying? So it was dope. Always good vibes. Yeah, it was good to be a part of, man. So obviously, Nigel Johnson, right? Yeah. For those who don't know Nigel's he's a freaking assassin on the court. Right? For sure. So Nigel was a part of our summer pickup run group or whatever, and we had played one game against the kids at that point. And these are people who that were on my team, people who played in college or playing pro or were on the way. Yeah, and we're playing against some good high school kids, but we're just better, right? Right, for sure. But it was competitive. They competed. So Nigel, this full Nigel puts up eating Chick-fil-A. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Right. Eating Chick-fil-A. And I know Nigel, right?
And I know what he can do, right? And I usually end up guarding Nigel, right? So this fool ends up coming in there eating fast food, and this is gonna be a drop, definitely a Kawhi laugh drop coming, but he ends up being put on the high school team, right?
Right, he did.
This fool, he didn't stretch nothing, right? So I know Nigel's an assassin, but I'm thinking this is for charity. Like, we're trying to get the kids better. And first two possessions, he comes out, wow.
Gosh.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, look,
we come down,
now the kids is watching the stuff.
And now the kids is watching.
Everybody in the gym getting hype.
Comes down again, I'm like,
said, nah.
So then he hits like, I think the game was 11. He hit maybe like 6 or 7 points, and he had a tough game winner on me. Oof. So anyone who knows me, I'm competitive, and y'all was slicing his head like,
oh, he was gassing.
They was gassing,
sure.
Rightfully so.
Yeah,
rightfully so, because
sure.
Nigel's tough. Like, he's one of the toughest guys I've ever had to guard. But I just remember, I'm like, yo, we're here for the kids.
Right, yeah. Next thing
we're here for the kids. Like, I'm trying to move the ball, get them better. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking he's coming off he literally just ate a freaking Chick-fil-A sandwich, a lemonade, and a large waffle fry with Chick-fil-A sauce. You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
He ain't get the milkshake though.
Nah, he ain't get the milkshake.
I was about to say.
But he came in, typical dude who can hoop, flip-flops. You know what I'm saying?
He had the UVA gear on.
He had the UVA gear on.
Yeah.
He walked in like he was hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, man.
For sure.
But then after that, like, me and Oscar were like, all right, we're not losing no more. And the games got real competitive. We played him again, and I had to go back at him. We went back and forth for like 4 straight possessions, and then I was like, all right.
And then where we came in is, so we had booked the gym from a certain allotted amount of time, right? So the camp, I remember we purposely ended the camp probably like an hour and a half before the gym time was supposed to be done. And we're thinking like, man, we'll get a couple games in, all that stuff.
Right.
And then next thing you know, I see, which we should have already been prepared for. Y'all getting competitive.
Yeah.
Now the kids' parents are showing up. Camp is over and stuff. I remember we closed out the camp then, and y'all still kept running.
Yeah.
It was like, nah, we're not done yet.
Right.
No, you're not done. I need one more. To the point where the dude who, ran the gym was like, come on, man. Like, what's going on here? You're not stopping it. When the games get like that, you're not stopping it.
We're over here running his bill up on accident. Didn't even know it. But, I wanted to give that backdrop because after – the event ended, you gave like a speech up to the kids about like y'all's organization and what y'all do, man, and it really like hit me, and that's why I was like, man, we got to collab somehow. And then we ended up collabing on a school drive donation event with Jill's house not too long after. But yeah, just wanted to give that background, man. But let's get into just a little bit about you, man. I know you've done a lot, man, in your life, but I figured we can kind of start with your journey, starting your organization. And I know it goes back to even like high school. So we'd love to, have you talk to the people about that, man, and then go from there to, where you guys are today, because there's been a lot, man, that's happened
for
in
sure,
between
man.
that time.
Definitely blessed. Can't say anything about that, and the impact is crazy, right? So, really starting and a lot of times, so I was actually pursuing a medical degree, right? So like I was learning science my whole life, from high school, going into college, I was like, hey, I got to make sure I go to the school that has a great medical program, biology, all this stuff. Business was really, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about, I thought that was where I was supposed to be, was like in the medical field. Yeah. So, fast forward, I ended up at VCU and still no idea what I actually wanted to do. Right. As every single college kid really is. But I'm pursuing it. I'm in pre-med, so I'm taking all these classes and stuff. So I'm like, look, this is, when you start to go through the day-to-day, you start to gain some type of passion for it, especially being a competitive person. Yeah. And medical school is so hard to get into and things like that people are like, hey, you trying to feel like, hey, I've spent this much time on it so far. Like, let me keep continuing what I'm doing here. So really what happened was I was, had no idea that anything else but medical school would be an option. Right. And so fast forward to when I was, going through VCU and stuff like that, I, was blessed enough to have a scholarship at VCU. So I was getting, a stipend to be there monthly. Yeah. And, from that though, it was really one of those things where I had a couple jobs here and there or whatever, but the main thing that I really like to do, right, was get together with people. I like to throw parties. I like to, have a good time, all that stuff. And to really giving back and stuff still was not in the picture. But I knew, like, hey, people, we can bring some people together under one roof. We'll see what happens from there, type of thing. On the side, right? On the side, like, you got to focus on school and things like that when you're doing biology stuff. But really, it was like, hey, let's start throwing some parties. Let's see where this, let's see what happens from here. So I remember, though, like, I was always growing up volunteering, but I thought I would just leave it at that, right? So I would volunteer at, one of these places called Eddie's Club, which really, that was like where I kind of grew up in this organization. And that was an organization that really, individuals that had disabilities kind of gathered on, like a clubhouse type vibe for individuals that all had disabilities, kind of to feel like, you're one and the same. And so with that being said, I kind of grew up, there volunteering sporadically, and growing more relationships with the kids, some of the adults there, things like that. So every break when I came home from school, that's what I would do, would still volunteer whenever I can. And so, like I said, though, once I was able to really feel like, this is something that, an individual like myself had the gift of bringing people together, I'm like, okay, let's try it one time, right? Let's see what happens when I throw a party or whatever. And people were willing to pay and do all this stuff. So I'm like, okay. Like, I still have on the back of my idea, like, how is all this going to, come together?
Right.
So then I remember my last time volunteering at Eddie's Club, I came, I stepped foot in the building, and the lights were barely on, man. And, like, it was like, I could just see, the building really deteriorating and things like that. And so I'm like, man, like, this is an organization that I really feel like I've grown up in and stuff. I got to try to figure out what's going on here. You know what I'm saying? So really what happened from there is that, I'm a young kid at that time, but I remember I had developed, the relationship with the executive director. So I sat him down and I said, man, what's going on here? Like, what is this? What's happening? And so really what he told me, he was like, man, look, we are trying to do whatever we can to stay afloat. All we want to do is, like, I mean, it's tough to bring in money monthly. We got bills and stuff to pay and all that stuff. So he was really thinking of it from, like, a business perspective. But I'm thinking of it from a impact perspective. Right. These people that are dependent on you. What do you mean you can't, keep the doors open? I didn't understand the business. Like, there's a business side to a nonprofit. Right. And so that was really, like, I guess that was the thing that kind of opened my eyes up to, like, oh, this is not a joke, right? But it's double-sided because you have to make an impact on the community, but you got to be able to keep your doors open in order to do so. So for that, with that being said, it's not only staff and things like that that are affected by it, but I was really just concerned about the kids that I had grown up with. So then I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen from here, right? Like, thank you for that insight. But I kind of took that, and that's kind of how I started to navigate when I went back to school and, like, I was hosting those parties. So I'm trying to figure out, like, if I don't need this money, right, I have a scholarship and things like that, and there's an organization that can't keep its lights on, I wonder if I can start throwing parties, right, raising that money and donating it to a charity that would need it.
Right, that's big.
Right, so that's how I kind of, like, put two and two together. But it was still, like, something that I wasn't focused on because I had this whole medical school thing going. So really fast forward, the last thing that really, like, set it off, and I was like, man, I got to do something with this, is I hosted a senior send-off. And that was like a day where I really wanted to bring all the seniors from VCU together, individuals that hadn't dressed up. You know how it feels. Like you got that, you put your suit and tie on and stuff. Exactly. And so people had never really experienced that unless you're in a fraternity, sorority, or something like that. But, like, your average college kid doesn't dress up that often. No. Right? You might have an internship or something like that, but, like, I
didn't own a suit in college.
Yeah, right? Like, you don't, but you get that feeling when you put that on, right? So I know that that's something that I really wanted to do. And so we hosted a red carpet event as a senior. Everyone could come. I remember I charged, I think it was like $80 a couple, which is kind of a lot in college. But it was like open bar and different things like that. So I remember it was a big hit. It was huge. We rented out a bar downtown and stuff like that. So when I brought everybody together and stuff like that, the owner was really taking care of us. So, the owner of the place that we rented out and stuff. So the overhead was very cheap. So I remember it was like a ton of money that we raised. And that's when I was, like, looking at it like, man, no way I keep this money. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's no way I can. Especially after that, conversation I had with Eddie's Club. Yeah. So then that's what happened, man. We raised that money, and I was like, look, there's different organizations that this could go to. Maybe we should divvy it up. Where does this kind of go from here? And so we ended up really throwing parties and donating the money afterwards. And then I actually ended up getting into medical school. And I was like,
but first of all, that's big. That's not some.
Oh no, man,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was.
That's not.
It was a
some,
blessing for sure. It was definitely a blessing. It was a blessing.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out but my happy place was when I was throwing those parties and donating that money. So where do I go from here, right? And that's kind of where Hearts of Empowerment came about is, hosting these events and donating it to an organization that needs it to keep their doors open. And that's kind of, I know I stretched the story out a little bit,
man.
but that's really what it was, man.
I mean, all that matters as far as putting the pieces together. And there's a couple things I heard, man. Number one, you were focused on the impact that Eddie's House had on kids.
Yeah.
And the impact that not being open would have on not being able to keep doing that, right?
For sure.
And then the second thing is, like medical school, especially as a person of color, like that's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
It's a big deal for everybody, but I mean, that's probably not something that like runs in your family. Maybe it is, but not in most families. It's not just expected to go to medical school. So to kind of say, look, I'm gonna pivot to something that maybe not be as prestigious and cool to some people, to make an impact, to me is huge, man, because not trying to downplay the importance of doctors, right? But there are a lot of people who can go to medical school. There's only one person who could have done what you've done, right?
I appreciate
what I'm saying? Like,
I appreciate that, bro.
Like that's and we can't just discount that, because I feel like you believe the same way I believe. Like, God has us on this earth for a reason. Yeah. And I feel like you found that, like, where most people don't in college, right? No one really knows. There are people who are in their 50s and 60s who still don't know, like, what am I doing? Like, and they're making good money, but it's like, why am I here? So, no, dude, that's powerful, man. So now that you started it at this point, right? What happened following that? Because I know, a lot of people, they start something and they think, oh, it's just gonna take off without any issues, right? So there are a lot of people who are looking to start an organization, whether it's a nonprofit or a business, or they just started it, or they've maybe been in the game a couple of years, who can probably relate or need to hear some stuff from your story. So just talk about, like, once you got started, how was that journey? Yeah, how's that journey been?
That up and down for sure. And I will say too, and I'm always very honest when individuals want to talk about this stuff, and like there was a time where I was really split. Like, am I really gonna continue this medical school path, or am I really gonna pursue making an impact on the community? And like you said too, doctors and things like that, several ways to make an impact on the community. But I really wanted to capitalize on the here and now. Like, there's a need for an individual like myself, and I feel like fulfilling my purpose was definitely one thing that I was always searching for. And so I was trying to figure out the answer to that, right? And I was very, very split. So, when I first started Hearts of Empowerment, I was still like heavy in the medical school game, and it wasn't until we hosted our first event, which was New Year's of 2018.
The Puso Foundation?
Yeah, with the Puso. Shout out to the Puso Foundation, man. Shout out to our mans at the Puso Foundation, Robert Banez. He's a beast, man.
Another young dude killing it.
Man. Him and I chop it up all the time, right? And there's, for us to be able to get into a space where we're both, being able to, relate to each other and the issues that we're dealing with in the nonprofit space. So big shout out to them.
And he went to VCU too, right?
He didn't. He actually went to JMU.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. He went to JMU. So we, he's the one that gave us a chance. You know what I mean? Because they were already an established nonprofit. So he was like, hey, man, look, this is a way that I remember he called me. He called me on like one of his nights out, and he doesn't go out often.
Right.
But he called me like late, and he was like, because I had just like told him like, hey, man, I'm thinking about starting this organization and all this stuff. And we had just got our paperwork, and I hadn't, updated him. But he called me. He's like, man, look. He's like, my boys just got in the Uber. It was probably like October maybe.
Yeah.
He's like, my boys just got in the Uber and they just asked me what I'm doing for New Year's. And he was like, yo, people are thinking about New Year's and there's nothing to do. He was like, yo, if you're really serious about this Heart to Empowerment stuff, let's start collaborating, bro. I want to do something for New Year's. Make sure you guys have your ducks in a row, and let's make something happen from this. So that really gave me a timeline, to be, it was a goal. I'm goal oriented. So I was like, yo, by New Year's, we got to have our ducks in a row. Because the Puso Foundation is going to give us a chance to host an event with them. Man, it was a blessing, man. So the first event that we did, which was then, we actually ended up raising $40,000 for charity. And I was like, from there, that's really when it started to say, okay, I think I need to make this pivot. Because I just remember like holding up that check and I'm like, man, this is real.
That's real money.
This is real. You know what I mean? This is real. And this is our first event. So that really gave me the satisfaction of like, okay, if we can build on this, then we're starting at a very, very good place.
Right.
So then that really made my decision a lot, easier as I was going through. So I will start out by saying that I wasn't 100%, I hadn't decided 100% what I was going to do. It wasn't like I woke up one morning and was like, forget everything I dealt with. I'm going this way. It was like I really had to, see that this is something that was really working. And so that's one of the things that I'm very honest with what I tell people is that I had to make sure what we were doing was actually going to make an impact. And it wasn't something that, people say make that leap and things like that. Definitely make that leap, but make sure that you
gotta be smart about it.
Yeah, you got to make sure what you're doing is actually, is making an impact or working or whatever. So definitely that was one of the things that I said. And then, once people got there, they were like, Pusa Foundation was the organization that people knew about already, but they're like, what is this Heart to Empowerment thing? So that gave us an opportunity to bring people together. And it was like it was almost like a bunch of warm leads. You know what I'm saying? Like
exactly,
it's like, well, you want to know what Hearts of Empowerment is? Well, we're a brand new organization that does X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So that really brought everybody together and allowed us to. And then people were like, "What's next?" You know what I'm saying? What's next? This is, what are you guys gonna do next? So after that is really when I was like, okay, you know what I mean? This is something that I really like. My juices was flowing. I'm like, this is something I'm excited about. So a couple months after that is when we, partnered with Inova Children's Hospital to do an event. It was kind of like a toy drive,
right?
Where we set up location and had people come drop off toys and have a good time with us and catch a little vibe. And we collected tons and tons of toys. I don't remember the exact number, but I remember we had probably about 10 boxes or so of toys that we were bringing to the Inova Children's Hospital. And then the ball really just kept rolling from there. Once people started to, kind of get word of what we were doing and things like that is when we really, once I really decided that this is something that I wanted to pursue. So it was definitely a up and down, journey because I had to get a team together and do different things like that too. So it was, something that I really wanted to figure out if I'm going to try to, just do this on the side or if this is going to be something that's going to require a bunch of attention and a bunch of focus and really like the impact that I was able to see that we were making was substantial. So I was like, this is what we need to do.
Man, that's awesome because there's a couple things that I heard, man, that I think can help people. Number one, like you didn't just say, man, I got this opportunity. I'm going to drop everything I'm doing and forget medical school just out of excitement, right? Because on social media, there's all these pages.
For sure.
Hey, if you quit your job and focus on your business idea, you'll be able to make this amount of money. And there's some times where that's necessary, right?
Right.
But you also have to be smart. Like, you were very strategic. The second thing is, like, you did it right? Like, you didn't, and I've been around him for a little bit. Like, Correy does things right. He doesn't play about taking shortcuts or any of that. Because if you would have, half done that event, then you wouldn't have gotten those leads. People wouldn't have asked, like, well, what are you going to do next, right?
Right.
And then the last thing that I thought about is, because you got that early success, it's kind of like when you hoop, right? Man, when you're say you're playing for a new team, right? Or playing, let's say you go from JV to varsity or varsity to, now you're playing in college. When you see that first shot go in, you just kind of relax. You're like,
you're like, oh,
I can do this. Like, I belong here.
Yeah.
Right? So did you kind of get that feeling of like, man, I just saw the ball go in the hoop and now it's like the hoop went from this to this?
Yeah, for sure. And I just knew I had so many different ideas. I just didn't know how to put it under one umbrella,
right?
I would say. So that's why I kept really Hearts of Empowerment's mission as project planning for other charities super vague, so that I could fit everything that I wanted to do under that umbrella. So I knew that once we got that first one under our belt, I was immediately plotting. You know what I mean? I'm like, what can we do next? How can we, what charity can we partner with next? All that stuff. So it was one of those things where once I saw that, my brain really started like what's next? Yeah. I was on that what's next type thing. So definitely, for sure, I remember that, like it was yesterday, really.
I bet, man. And you did mention, having to put a team together like in a short amount of time, right? Before the pod, I kind of told you how like our clock-in team came together.
Yeah.
It was, it was really organic, man. Honestly, we just did stuff and people asked to help. But I know when we talked in the past, like you told me about how you put your team together. So I think it would be good for people to hear that, because sometimes, you don't need to have your friends and family. Sometimes you do. And there should be a process, not just, hey, like someone raised their hand and let's hop on board.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. And that, the biggest thing with that is that, vetting the team was definitely, because immediately once we had, it was only 3 of us. That's the first thing, is without Junior and Will as the other co-founders, man, this Hearts of Empowerment is nothing. And the rest of the team now too. But, starting out really trying to plan an entire New Year's event, it was just us 3. Think about that. So we also had the Pusa Foundation and stuff like that. But if we're going to go in there and I'm going to say, hey, Rob, like my charity is supposed to plan events for other charities, then it's like, let us do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know you got an established organization, let us do this. So a lot of the heavy lifting was on us 3. So without them, man, nothing is possible. So without them and God, obviously. But
big shout out to them, man. Like, I feel like Junior is more so like the I don't want to say the strategy, but like the brains and like make sure like everything is in place.
For sure.
Will is just flat out energy, bro.
Yeah.
Like, Will just brings energy, just swag, happiness.
For sure.
And not that he's not strategic, not that you guys all are obviously, for sure. But like I think the dope thing is like you guys aren't alike. But you guys work so well together.
Right. And so Junior is from college. I met Junior. Okay. And then Will actually got introduced through one of my other boys, Saeed. So, with that being said, us 3, I would say, really were the entire Hearts of Empowerment team. And so from there, it was really like once we had that first event, obviously individuals, because a lot of people get ideas and a lot of people, tell you, man, look out for this, what I got going on next or whatever. So when people started to see that, obviously that's when all the, a bunch of friends reached out and were like, hey, like, how can we help? How can we help? How can we help? And so I remember I sat down with those 3 and we're like, look, one of the main things that we want to do is keep this serious. And that was something that, was really important to us, is because like at that point in time when we had a goal that we had to meet, like we clocked in. We clocked in when it was just us 3 to make that New Year's event happen. So we were like, there's no way we're going to let the 4th person, we're so small, anybody come in after us 3 and not take it as serious as we did. So I think that with given that tight timeline to make things work, because those are my boys at first too. But when we walked into the room and we were like, man, we got to get this done. Yeah. And we all were really like, there's no way we're going to let somebody come in and take this as a joke going forward. And I think other people got that too from us being able to host that event first. They were like, all right, these guys are serious about what they're doing.
Right.
And plus, like, once we were able to really show individuals that this is where the money's going and things like that, people started to realize that it's not about us.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Huge.
So once you get people in a room that realize that it's not about us, then like that next person that comes in has to hop on board or there's no way it's going to work. So those are really the main 2 things that we wanted to, establish from, moving forward. And I know that one of the biggest things is we wanted to make sure that the next individual really went through an entire interview process. I don't care if you're my roommate.
That's crazy.
I don't care if you're my best friend, my dad, whatever it is. It's like, man, you're going to have to go through this interview process.
That's how it should be,
and that sets the tone. You know what I'm saying? Like when somebody reaches out and they say, how can I help you? And you say, apply at this link online.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? What are they going to say?
Yo, I would have been like, no, I'll be honest. This is how I got to bring this up because you were like humble about it. But we were talking and then this is probably like 3 or 4 months. Actually, maybe a little bit longer after we met. But they were doing big things, and his time was like he didn't have any time. So I hit him up. He's like, "Hey man, I'm not trying to be big time, but you gotta have my assistant to schedule some time."
Bro, no.
So and we weren't like tight, but I was still like, damn, I can't just hit you directly, bro. No, I wasn't like that. So I can imagine you hitting your best friend, like, yo, apply to this thing.
Yeah,
like,
for sure. Like, he's like, what is going on? You know what I'm saying? Like, you got one event.
You got Hollywood on me?
Yeah,
one good event. All of a sudden, he's got these P. Diddy or something.
Right. No, that's exactly, like, that was the, that was the feedback. It was like, what do you mean, bro? Like, I just sent you this text message. That's not enough. I'm like, nah, man, I need to know some more information. Like, what can you bring to the table? All that stuff. So it was like, a lot of people were receptive to it, and those are the people that we actually interviewed and, made this a serious thing. And a lot of people were like, nah, I'm not doing that. And I respect it.
Yeah.
I respect it because it's not for everybody.
Right.
And so, the biggest thing behind it, too, is it's all volunteer, right?
Man,
so think about, like, for instance, telling somebody to apply and then saying you're not going to get compensated for the work that you're doing. The compensation really comes from, the community's impact. You know what I mean? Like things like that. That's really, so a lot of times that also was something that was, just the easy filter. Individuals that really cared about the community will go all the way through the process. Individuals that don't will weed themselves out. And that's what we wanted. That's exactly what we wanted, because people have certain skill sets and things like that. And if they're not fully on board, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they're going to be drained from their 9 to 5 or whatever, and you're going to get the back end of their work and stuff anyways.
Exactly.
So we wanted to make sure that people were down for the ride. And we were like, I'll be completely honest, everything is 100% volunteer. Like, the impact is really where the reward is coming from. If you ride this wave, obviously, get to the point where we want to be the biggest charity that we can be.
Right.
Then we could talk about things later after that. But as of right now, everything's 100% volunteer. So, like, how do you feel about that? How do you hold yourself accountable? So it was really one of those things where we were, that was our natural vetting process, was just being fully transparent about what people are walking into. And then the ones that were very serious is obviously when we started to really ask those questions and things like that.
Right.
And then it was just a natural. But we also wanted to realize that, we're not going to be those stickler, individuals that, like, once you get in, it's a family. You know what I mean? It really is a vibe. So you have a good time.
You can feel it when you're around you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate that for sure. We wanted to make sure people realized it, because a lot of people saw that part, but they didn't see the intense, I would say, interviewing processes and things like that, because it was multiple rounds and all that stuff. And we were serious about it. But then after that, we were like, come in, like, let's, you know what I mean? All that stuff. So it was definitely, when people caught that, they were like, it's worth it. You know what I mean? It's worth what we're doing. And then, like I said, because volunteering is volunteering, right? We're never going to say no about coming to an event. Come to an event. We want to, we need you, what I'm saying?
Right.
And they need you, but, getting into the meat and the operations of the nonprofit and being a volunteer, it's a tough ask.
It is.
So we were just thankful for the people that stepped up and allowed us to help. And I want to give a huge shout out to Nikhil too. We can't forget about Nikhil.
Yeah, that's my guy.
Yeah, he's one of the people that came in and just cranked it up. You know what I mean? Handling all the operations internally. He's that person that we really, really needed to be able to,
He's the glue, I feel like.
Yeah, that man is genius, bro.
Yeah,
genius.
He's real sharp, man.
Clock in family, Aham here. Appreciate you all for making it this far into the episode. If you enjoy our content, we've got something special for you. Check out patreon.com/clockin or download the Patreon app that's spelled Patreon and search Clock In the Podcast. You'll have a chance to become a subscriber of the podcast for access to bonus episodes, merchandise discounts, and much more, only at $5.10 a month. The link is also in the podcast description. All right, I'll shut up now and let y'all get back to it. Peace.
And I was going to bring this up, but before I do that, one of the things you brought up, and not to have a pun, but you wanted people with the right heart to be a part of your group, Hearts of Empowerment.
For sure.
Because you do have to have a heart to want to empower people without any agenda. That's what I love about what you guys do, man, and your volunteers, because like you said, man, like the reward. Honestly, to me, the reward that they're getting is the biggest reward that someone can get.
For sure.
Giving to others, serving others.
For sure.
Right? You can't put a monetary value on that. So, you know, you literally have to vet people. And not that the people who didn't necessarily make it through, not that they don't have the right heart. They just didn't have the heart to do that type of work without getting paid for it. Right? Which is fine.
And I understand, like I said, I completely understand it.
Nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to bring this up because we worked with you all on putting together a tournament. It just, because of COVID, it didn't happen. But you also vet your partners.
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole nother part of it, because, you know, when he was like, man, you got to have my assistant or whatever, and I didn't take it anyway. But we went through a vetting process because at this point, you guys had cranked some things out, right? And I want to bring this up because when you get to a certain point, you're no longer like hoping for the next. You're not hoping people will want to partner with you, right? Now it's like, all right, I'm making decisions based on what's right for us and the people we're going to serve. Right? It's about who's the right fit, not, hey, I just need an event to post something, right? And that's where you guys were at when we started working with you guys. So talk about your vetting process for the people who want to partner with you guys to raise money for those nonprofits. Yeah,
so, you know, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a huge component to it. And, you know, one of the biggest things that I tell people is that money is not going to fix everything, right? So a lot of times as a charitable partner, you have to have the operation and the processes set up to be able to properly use this money if we're going to be able to raise it for you, you know? So a lot of times, you know, we have a bunch of charities that apply to, you know, get funding from Hearts of Empowerment and just be a partner with it and things like that. And so that's why, once again, we kept it super vague with the project planning because there's 3 ways that we do it. The first one is going to be their normal event, right? Partner with Hearts of Empowerment for an event. We'll take care of the entire thing. The second thing is going to be more of a consulting basis of stuff. So partner with Hearts of Empowerment. It may not be money or funding that you need. It's going to be something like, let us take a look inside your operational processes and see if this is something that, you know, maybe we can fix without, you know, money's not going to fix this. You need to, you know, set X, Y, and Z, you know, leadership and things. You know, there's just so many different things that go into running a successful nonprofit and business in general. So that's the third thing. And then a lot of times we found out that, like, our marketing presence was very successful in the fact where, once again, I got to give some more shout outs. Correy. Yeah, Correy Gray, man. He's Corey Gray, and then we also got somebody named RJ who's on, and those two are crushing it. A lot of times when people reach out to us, they're like, I love y'all's content. Man. I love y'all's content. And so they are like, you know, without them, and, you know, I say that about all the team members, and it's cliche, but really it's nothing. So, like, my team is everything to me, you know, so I appreciate them. And so once we got word, really, that was, you know, a common denominator, that individuals really loved the way we were marketing stuff. We were like, content creation is something that we could do for charities, right? Maybe you have the funding, things like that. Maybe it's awareness that you really need, and maybe it's the clean, you know, and shout out to the people on Clock In Podcast too, because you know, Andrew, all of you, it's super clean, Nico, and it's something that really takes things to the next level. So with us realizing that, it was one of those things where, like, hey, if you guys just need really a spotlight on what you guys are doing from a marketing aspect of stuff, that's something we could take care of too. So that's why we left it. You know, project planning is what we do. So we really take a look at their needs, and we take a look at kind of their previous work and how they've handled things. You know, if they had any audits, show it to us. Things like that, where we can really see, like, you know, how has this charity been operating? And then, and of course, timeline, right? If their timeline doesn't match up to what Hearts of Empowerment has going on, then it's one of those things where we're sorry, you know, you could get on somewhat of a waiting list type thing. But we definitely want to figure out how we can expand to meet the demand for our services. That's really the next thing we want to do.
Yeah, and like I said, man, you guys are very thorough, because you know, we had talked about stuff and we were cool. It wasn't, all right, we're gonna do it with you guys. Nah, we went through about 4, you know, video meetings. Like, I'm over here putting together a freaking SWOT analysis. You know what I'm saying? I'm over here, you know, practicing my PowerPoint presentation. Making sure my Google Meet screen shares right. You know, I'm prepared, bro. You know, we went into that joint like, we're Shark Tank,
Nah, man, for sure.
But speaking of that, I do have to bring this up, and I know we all got stuff to do, so I don't want to hold you too long, but you gotta bring up the Forbes thing, man. Like you can't. I know you don't like to brag. You gotta bring this up, man. Are you allowed to talk about it now?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
Thought you were, but
there's something else that's in the works with that. But the one thing that that you're referring to is the Detroit Summit, right? Yeah. I could talk about that. So, man, once again, another blessing. This is not me. You know what I mean? It's definitely this is the Lord's work. Yeah. So, I just remember that we were, there was one time where I don't know. I was just going through my day to day, and I got a call. And it was actually from an individual who was trying to intern at Forbes.
Okay.
And really what happened is they were like, hey, we see that you have this mutual person that we've been trying to get in contact with. His name is Correy Facciane. Do you mind if we give him a call? And they were talking to the person during the interview, right? So I'm trying to think about how do I receive that? If I'm in an interview, you talking about somebody, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, wait, what happened to my position?
Right.
So either way, I got a call from this person and they were like, look, Forbes said they were trying to get in contact with you. I don't know what's going on. And I was like, what? I was like, do they have the right number? What is it? Whatever. So they were like, she was like, yeah, pass them the right contact information and stuff. Just be on the lookout. And, people, I was like, this is cap. You know what I'm saying?
This is a joke.
Yeah, no way. So I was just on the lookout, really. In the back of my mind, I was like, let's see what's really going on with this. It doesn't make any sense, right? I have no idea why they would be, but if they are, then tell them this is where to find me type thing. So I remember, sure enough, that same day, I got a call, and I answered, and it was, an individual that wanted to start the interview process for a Forbes 30 under 30, summit invite, I would say.
Man. That's why I call him big time.
No, man. Like I said, it was, it was one of those things where it caught me by surprise, and I was like, what's going on? I was really asking all the questions.
Yeah, you want to make sure this is legit.
Yeah, this is legit. And so, for sure enough, it really was. And really what happened from that summit was, they wanted to get the top 156 individuals to really come out to Detroit and be a part of this summit where you get in the same room as the venture capitalists, you get in the same room as just other entrepreneurs, just to kind of put us all in an incubator type of setting.
Right.
So there was numerous rounds of interviews, right? That was the first thing they wanted to know, who I was, about me, and all that stuff. And then I, told them that. They're like, we'll get back to you. It was super short, and I was super confused. You start Googling the person when you tell them their name. They're like, do they really work for this? Do they work for Forbes, all that stuff? Sure enough, they did. So I went through the second interview process. That was more about my upbringing, me as a person still, and all that type of stuff. Third round I went through, fourth round, fifth round, sixth round. I'm like, man, what is going on? Right. They hadn't even really asked me about Hearts of Empowerment, all that type of stuff. And then the last round they really did. They were like, so tell us, what you're working on, and tell us what you have going on now.
Right.
So I mentioned to them this, these other things that I'm working on, and I told them about Hearts of Empowerment too. Right. And that was that's what I had set in stone at the moment. So that's really what they were like, look, we don't usually bring nonprofit CEOs to this event, right? There's no way, because people are looking for a return on their investment and things like that when you're pitching to them and all that stuff. There's no need to have you really here. But you've impressed us, so, I don't know, we'll talk about it and we'll give you a call back. So then it was probably 2 weeks later they called and they're like, congratulations, we want to bring you out to Detroit. And we want to bring it, it'll be called pretty much under Hearts of Empowerment's name and things like that, but we want you as an individual to come in and just pitch what you have going on as a person.
Right.
So when I went there, I was like a hybrid, right? Yeah. I was trying to figure out how do I make this work for Hearts of Empowerment? How do I also make this work for some personal other things that I have going on and stuff like that? And it was a blessing, man. It was definitely a good situation. We went there and we were, I think there's out of the 156, there was between 15 to 25, I don't know the exact number, individuals that actually ended up closing a deal that day. Wow. And so we were, one of the people. Yeah, we were one of the people that went in and ended up closing some deals moving forward. So it was definitely a blessing, and I'm looking forward to kind of what we have going on next, alongside them. So
can you talk about who you're working with or not?
Not yet, man.
Okay, all right.
Hopefully, not.
All right.
I have a quick question for you too. The medical school thing. Mm-hmm. Your family, your support system. How did they take that news?
That's a great question.
How did you handle that?
Yeah, that's a huge question, man. So for me, once I broke, that was honestly the scariest part for me. I was trying to figure out like, how do I break? It wasn't even really my friends, but it's my parents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's the rest of my family. Like, how do I break the news that this is something I've been working for? This is something I was able to achieve. It's different if I'm like, man, I've been trying and I couldn't do it. This is why I'm taking a pivot. But this is like, I had success here, but I just don't want to do it. Yeah. So
he about to be the next, Bill Cosby. That was a good thing back then. You know what I'm saying?
One of the biggest things for me is that I had to stay true to myself, and I had to realize, like, once I sat my parents down and I spoke to them and told them, like, look, I can pursue a career like this, right? And I'll probably be okay in it. You know what I'm saying? I'll be okay financially. I'll be okay. But if my passion is not here, that's going to be reflected in several different ways. It's going to be like, you're going to be able to see the outcome of me making this decision probably 15, 20 years down the road. My patience when I get out of medical school are going to be able to, sense that right off the bat. My future wife, whoever it is just going to, overall, it's going to be a situation that I'm trying to avoid before it even gets there.
Yeah.
Because I'm sensing it at an early stage that this is not where I want to be. So it's one of those things where I got to make the best decision for myself. And it was one of those things where obviously they're crying, they're doing all this stuff, but really they respected it at the end of the day. They're like, look, for you to be able to sit us down and tell us like you're stopping something before all the red flags show, or before, really, situations that you can't get out of are here. It's nothing that we respected you and trusted you up until now. So why would we, stop? And so it was one of those things where, like, once they realized that there was a detailed plan that I had, I didn't know if it was going to work or not. And that was something I was very honest about. I was like, I have no idea if what I'm showing y'all is even going to work, or what I'm hearing or what I want to do is going to work. But I'm going to figure it out. And that's one of the things where they're like, you always have been someone to figure it out. So this is, that's really the decision that we got to respect. So once I got that conversation out the way, I'm like, man, I can talk to anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, at that point, like, got whoever else came, I was like, look, I already talked to my parents about this. We got this figured out. It was easier from there. But that was really, like, a tough conversation for me to have. And I just told them that I'm catching it before it's way too late. So that was one of those things, though.
Oh, that's a great question, man.
Yeah, it was huge.
I was thinking to ask it, I forgot, so I'm glad you asked it, because a lot of people needed to hear that, man. You went through something similar.
That's why I asked it.
Yeah, like he left the Fortune 500 company to start his own business and do it full time.
Oh wow.
So it's tough, bro, especially when you're doing something. I'm just gonna speak for the Black community, right? Like, there's certain things that we do that are good things, right?
Yeah.
And people are gonna say, almost look at it like, oh man, like, you made it, like, almost like that's your ceiling,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you have this job and you're doing this, like, you should just be happy. You know how many people who look like you would want to have that?
Yeah.
But you can't live with yourself like that, man.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who they're not able to have that conversation with their friends and family, because they're afraid of what the reaction is going to be, man. So
right.
I think that's going to help a lot of people, because, man, we have so many things just in us, man.
Yeah, just
people just don't want to. They don't want to tap into it, man.
And the biggest thing too that I want to add to that is, like, a lot of times, because this is the first thing that they said too, is like, finish school and then come back and do whatever you got to do after that. But a lot of times what people don't realize, especially like when you're starting your own thing and stuff like that, if you got momentum, man, you got to ride that.
Yeah.
And you don't know what that 4 years, that 5 years down the road is really going to look like. So if you know what's best for yourself and you have that momentum to kind of capitalize and ride that wave, you got to do it right then and there. And that's kind of what I explained to them too, because that was fresh off that event. That was fresh off of, like, everything else that I had planned going on. It was like, going according to what, my timeline was looking like. And I just remember my focus wasn't all the way there. And I'm not somebody who can kind of focus on two things and do them really well. It's like, I got to be full in on what it is. And I owed it to myself.
Exactly.
To really, bet on myself and make it work for me. And I had to do it right now. It wasn't one of those things where I could wait 4 or 5 years or whatever to finish school. It was like what I had to capitalize on then right now. And I still got a long way to go, a lot of work to do.
Right.
But ultimately, I'm super happy with my decision. And I wouldn't go back and do anything differently.
Let me ask you this: by the time you had that talk with your parents, were Junior and Will involved?
Yeah. So they were already involved. I'd already had everything set up. This was something that they didn't know that I was necessarily battling, I would say. It was one of those things where they realized where my passion was. They realized I was taking the MCAT. I was doing all the stuff that I needed to. But I didn't tell them that it wasn't even, like, that it was an option that I might not go. Like, they didn't realize how much I cared about the organization and about what I want, like other things I wanted to do.
Right. That
it was kind of one of those things where like, yo, we'll just deal with it as it comes while Correy's in school. So when I told them like, man, I'm thinking about like not even doing this stuff, that kind of helped them too.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah. They were kind of like, oh wow, like for real, word,
yeah,
for real. So then that really allowed them to have more confidence in me as a leader.
Exactly.
To continue on. You know what I mean? And that's when I got their real full buy-in because I'm like, I'm here. And so and that's what I really needed from them is their buy-in to say that they're right there alongside me. And then, we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, man, that's exactly why I asked that because I was going to say when you made that decision, they probably trusted that like you're really serious. Like you went from putting your toe in the water to diving full in.
Yeah.
And they probably had their toe in the water too, but they're probably looking like, is Correy gonna dive in? If he dives in, I'm gonna dive in.
Right.
There's a lot of people who are in leadership positions, and honestly, it includes us, like me and my brother, and my two other brothers. What we got going on with the kids of basketball, where someone's waiting, like you doing what you're doing the right way, and what you did. It really wasn't just about you because you did that. Now you have two other people who are all in.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you want to impact people, right? Mm-hmm. Well, in order to impact people, you need volunteers. Well, if you're not all in, the people aren't probably going to volunteer.
For sure.
So all this stuff like matters, bro.
Full circle.
A couple more things, man. You're very busy, but you're also you've been in a relationship since. Like before you started all this, right?
Right, yeah.
So, like, how do you balance that side? Because there's a lot of people, including myself, who are trying to figure it out. Like, how do you balance whether it's family life, your relationship, with everything you have going on, with also focusing on like not neglecting, your goals as well? Because I know it's not an easy balance.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing is being transparent. And keeping them involved. So that's really the two biggest things that's helped me is like if there's times where I'm having a tough week or like there's a lot of stuff that I have to get done, it's times that like it's a sacrifice that I have to make, but it's not about me. It's a sacrifice that really she's making as well. So acknowledging that and kind of moving forward and saying like I know that it's a sacrifice for you really to not be able to see me, right? That's like a weird way to phrase it, but it really is.
You're right.
And so like acknowledging them, giving them those words that like let them know, what do they call it? Words of affirmation and things like that, where it's like you giving them that confidence that like, what I'm doing is really out here that's best for both of us type of thing. And then that's like where the transparency and the communication kind of comes in is like, look, I'm being very transparent. This is going to be how my week looks. This is how my meetings look. If you want to like, you know what I mean? Whatever, I'll try to figure out a way that we can make that work. That was something that really helped. And then on top of that, setting out at least once, 1 or 2 days, which I actually blocked out in my timeline is like, or in my schedule, it's like, this is time that's dedicated for me and my girl. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is time where I'm going to take her to do X, Y, and Z, whatever. And I make sure that I at least do that outside of the weekends, at least once during the week, sometimes twice if it's potentially. And then a lot of that requires me to like, maneuver things around, and I'm somebody who likes to plan ahead. So if I have those days already blocked off, or if I, have those times allotted, and sometimes majority of the time it's the same time each week. Yeah. So that helps me out too, not scheduling things during that time, and it's at night, so it's fine anyways.
Right.
And then really like getting them involved. So she's a huge supporter of what I do. She's involved all the time in my daily projects. I know that her passion is like art and different things like that she doesn't get during her 9 to 5. So if there's something in particular that, something I'm doing involves art or something like that, I know that that's kind of like her getaway. That's her happy place. So I'll involve her and I'll be like, hey, like we got this project coming up. Like we just had our, event, our cocktails and cigar event. She loves to decorate and stuff. I'm like, hey,
we need
why
you.
why don't we make this your project? And for that, it kind of kept her busy while I was working on my stuff too. And at the end of the day, she was, she felt like she was a part of the entire thing.
Exactly.
So she also helps with the social media stuff, with all that. So she's super involved in the projects that we have going on. And that also helps because she realizes that, like, whatever she's doing, she needs me to get my stuff done. So it turns into more of
you
like...
guys have an ownership into
exactly.
it.
It turns into more of like, did you get your stuff done? I'm like, well, did you get your stuff? You know what I'm saying? Like, all that stuff. So we're like spending time.
I'm sure there's
on
been some growing pains, though, because working together isn't always easy.
Isn't always. It's definitely not always easy. But, like, I make sure that I put her in places that make her happy, as far as, like, getting away from... so she kind of views it as it's not really work for her. It's like something that she's dedicated to, and she would like to do. It just doesn't pay her, right? So it's like, I would like to do this stuff, but I have a job. So now I'm pretty much giving her that space to be able to create and do what she's good at and what she's passionate about. So that really has helped. Yeah, that's helped us out a lot. And plus, we've been at it for a while now. So she's seen, all through college, she's seen like all that stuff. So she's seen really the schedule pick up and all that. And she's been there since the beginning.
Right.
So it's really like, I mean, she takes pride in it. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where she gets to like witness really the journey, and vice versa too. I get to witness her journey and stuff. So that's kind of how, we cope with everything.
Dude, that helped a lot of people, man, including myself. So
hey, man, whatever.
That's why I had to ask it. It was really more selfish for me, honestly. But no, I know a lot of people are balancing that, right?
Yeah.
My last thing, man, before we close is just any parting words, man, and advice for people who, are on the edge about starting something, or they're going through their journey of starting something new, on their own, and maybe they're struggling or maybe they're hesitant. Just any thoughts, man, that are kind of along those lines of people that are looking to, get into the nonprofit space or entrepreneurial space, or just take a leap of faith for something. It may be medical school. It may be like, hey, I want to, I don't want to go to college. I want to learn a trade, But just anything, man, any wisdom you can impart, man, I think would be helpful.
For sure. I think, two things come to my mind. And the first thing is like pushing through that threshold, because there's a lot of times where either from like a mental side of things or even maybe physical side of things, like you think you can't do it anymore, and you start to get thoughts of the stopping and the journey is supposed to stop, like cut short or whatever it may be. It's really pushing through that threshold, I think, it's super cliche, but I think that that's something that, because there's a lot of times that like it's an uphill battle, and if you once you push through that threshold, the rest of it is really, you're not coasting, but it's definitely tougher to get through it. And a lot of times that threshold comes from like mental constraints that you put on yourself, or maybe something you heard or whatever it is. So it's really pushing through that from a physical and mental aspect of things. And then a lot of things too is like really, instead of paper chasing, it's purpose chasing. So it's like one of those things where like you got to figure out
for that one.
where you really got to figure out what your purpose is and chase that. Allow the paper and stuff to fall into place, you know what I mean? And I get that people got bills to pay and things like that, but it's really like, once you find your purpose and once you find what you're supposed to be chasing, quote unquote, pursue what you got to do, and worry about everything else later. So that's the biggest, I think, reward, is when you find that you think that you're at least pursuing your purpose, and that's where my happiness comes. And that's kind of what falls suit. Everything else kind of falls behind that. So those are really the two main things that I would say that's really been helping me on this journey.
Man, well, look, like I said, man, like you have a ton of wisdom and value you can add. Like we could talk all day.
Yeah.
But everyone who's listening, man, please take what he's saying seriously. Take his story. Figure out how you can, take bits and pieces to use for your own life, right? Because our journey isn't going to be the same as his, and vice versa. But, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring him on is, number one, he's super humble. Number two, he does things, with quality. And, he just has the right perspective. Like, you're what, 28, 27?
27, yeah.
Yeah, like, he's wise beyond his years, and I've learned a lot from him. And I'm 30, you know what I'm saying? So, man, it's been a pleasure. Before we go, you gotta tell people how they can connect with you guys, whether it's website, IG, Facebook. Like, just give your plug, man, about Hearts of Empowerment, how people can stay plugged into y'all's journey and support.
For sure. So you can follow us on Instagram at Hearts of Empowerment. You can follow, or you can, go to our website, www.heartsofempowerment.org. The Twitter is hearts_org.
Okay.
We've got a LinkedIn where anytime that you...
So you know he's official. You got LinkedIn, you're official.
We had to make sure that we had that. So we'll be all over the place when you just Google Hearts of Empowerment or, connect with us on social media. We'll be able to see everything, our upcoming projects, different volunteer opportunities. That's the way that you can connect with us.
Awesome, man. Anyone else you want to shout out? It could be family, mentors, volunteers.
Yeah, man. My team, like I've been saying, big shout out to my team. Big shout out to, I would probably say all of, my mentors. Got a bunch of people, man. CB. I want to give a big shout out to CB, Jared. So many people come to mind too. I'll stop it there. But there's some, my parents too. Always that. Always got to show love to them. And all the individuals that were impacting that have no idea that it's coming.
Yeah.
We got a lot of stuff coming for y'all, man. We're trying to, save the community, and we're on our way. So let's do it.
Yeah, man. I gotta do this because I don't want you to get in trouble, man. Gotta shout your girl out.
Got to.
You gotta shout her out.
Yeah,
You don't gotta give all the details. But
Shout out to our
you gotta
girl,
shout her out,
man.
man.
She tries to stay low key, man.
Yeah.
Shout her out there.
Only because I just don't want anyone listening like you shout me out. You shouted
Yeah, shout out to all the people that support me.
Yeah, bro.
Things like that.
I'm just messing with you, but look, man, it's like I said, it's been great. Like I said, I think a lot of people get a lot of wisdom and nuggets from this, man. As usual, it's always a pleasure to see you, man.
Always.
And man, look, episode 48, Correy Facciane here. Plug into everything they're doing, man. Be on the lookout for their events, and if you can support it and pull up, like he's mainly in the DMV area, but I'm sure it's not gonna stay that way, very long. He's gonna expand, but check him out, and y'all know what it is, man. As always, clock in, let's get it.
Clock in, man.
Appreciate y'all
Yes,
bearing with
sir.
us, with our little makeshift setup, man.
Yes,
And
sir. Clock in podcast, man. One of a kind.
thank you, man.
One of
Thank
a
you,
kind.
man. Appreciate it, man. We gotta have you back too,
Yeah.
because I already know between now and the next.
Yeah, we got some
6
good
months.
things coming. We got
6
some
to 12
good things
months.
coming, man. I got some.
So we'll have you back, man, and would love to talk to you more about other stuff. But our Clock In Lifestyle series, like a little day in the life.
Yeah.
I think it'd be dope, man, for you to.
Yeah. I can't wait for this next thing, man. I'm praying. Can't wait. This next stuff that we got going on, this next stuff that I got going on, it's gonna be huge.
Yeah,
So
I believe
I'm
it.
excited, man.
Yeah, stay tuned, man.
Excited.
Stay tuned. He's got big things coming. So, all right, y'all. Peace.
We put in work and here's the proof. What you want?
I'm making moves, punching in.
I'm on it too.
I'm in the gym.
I'm in the stew.
It's hunting season.
Where's the food?
We push each other daily, level up.
Cause that's what brothers do.
Clock in.